Hey everyone, Tim here from SnapAttack. Let's dig into this week's Threat SnapShot. So, red and blue teams alike know that there's multiple ways you can use compromised credentials. You can dump them with a tool like mimikatz, you can replay them with a tool like Responder. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit more obscure technique. This one falls under the MITRE attack matrix under password filters or password filtering DLLs. And this is with a tool called NPPSpy. Again, if you think about it in terms of, all the moves that an attacker has on their chessboard around, credential dumping, credential theft, really our goal at SnapAttack is to take as many of those moves off the chess table. And that includes some of these more rarely used ones because, again, as the more commonly used ones, like, dumping credentials or relaying them, get detected, attackers are going to move to some of these other techniques. And we want to make sure their customers are defended. So this was some really good research put out by Huntress. Again, this was something that they saw during an investigation out in the wild. And it's using an open source tool called NPPSpy, which we'll talk about in a little bit more in a minute. There is a legitimate use case here where, again, as part of that Windows login process, when the user types their password into that input box, that you may need to do some additional things on the back end. And this is really where that password filtering is being applied for malicious use. So instead of sending it to some other back-end system for authentication, what this malicious DLL is actually going to do is just dump that clear text credential to the file system. So really interesting, really basic technique. Lots of different ways to detect it, which we'll get into. Definitely recommend reading this article, but the one thing here that I really want to call out is, again, they found that when this was actually installed on a an Exchange server, although I would assume a domain controller would also have a lot of these as well, they started capturing emails and other login attempts on an Exchange box. So definitely also depends on what kind of activity is going on in the box because this is going to be intercepting a lot of different login requests. So again, just a very interesting thing to take a look at. Again, this is an open source tool. You can see that this is multiple years old, but it is still actively used. Let's actually take a look at what this looks like in SnapAttack. So we have a session here, again, using NPPSpy to capture this clear text credential during that login process. We've got a Windows victim here where we're going to install that password filter, and then a Linux machine. We'll just kind of go through the basic steps of the attack. So again, we have that NPPSpy DLL. We're going to copy that over to the victim machine. We are going to install that DLL. Again, there is a registry key where we say as part of that process, we're going to load that DLL. So there's two different parts of that attack where we register the DLL. We change the provider order. That again required as part of this. They leave some artifacts behind. Then we can also jump over here where NPPSpy is triggered. So we're actually going to do that here from our Linux host, and we're going to RDP into the machine with those credentials to actually complete that login process. So if we take a look at our timeline here, again, quite a few different opportunities here for detection and things. Let's actually kind of pivot over to what some of these look like. So this one here is looking at the network provider registry key modification. Again, this is one of those critical steps here where, again, you've got to modify this specific key to, set that you want to load that DLL, as well as this, option to install that here. So both of these together in conjunction are high confidence, high severity here because, again, you have that opportunity for credential theft. Again, with SnapAttack, lots of cool things that we can do where we can launch an attack simulation for these. So there is an atomic red team module that will validate this detection, as well as the threat that we've captured here. And you can also, one-click deploy that to an environment. So I know this one is compatible with Splunk. I can deploy this here. And then again, with a configured integration, one-click, we can have that deployed. You can see that being tracked here, as well as, integrations where we have configured, integrations, but it's not compatible for one reason or another. Other community rules here. So this is one of the Sigma community ones. Good analytic. It's a little bit more fragile. Again, it's looking for specifically NPPSpy text or that NPPSpy DLL, which an attacker is going to more often than not, modify. So again, things to think through here. And always we talk about detection in depth of, what can an attacker modify? How many detections do you actually need to deploy to make sure that you have, good defenses here? So those are all the things that we think about at SnapAttack, and really why we want to treat detections as code and validate those as part of that pipeline. The other thing here I do want to mention, because we did say Atomic Red Team has an attack for this. We do have that in the platform, which you can see as well for community users. One thing I will call out is all this is doing here in the code is it's actually just copying and installing the provider. It's not actually going in and logging in. So you can see here that manual step of please log out and log back in to actually store that credential. So one of those things with automation here that you want to make sure that you're completing. Otherwise, you may get a false sense of security or may not trigger all of your detections. Well, anyways, so that's our threat snapshot for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to schedule a demo or see more about SnapAttack, definitely reach out, and we'll see you next time.